Julius Caesar is one of the most recognizable figures in history. A military and political genius, Caesar conquered Gaul, served as a consul in the Senate, and played a key role in ending the Roman Republic, changing the course of history altogether. He did this all by the time he was 44 years old, but we aren't going to look at those grand events today. Instead, we are going to look at a small footnote in his storied life, where at the age of just 25, the young Roman was kidnapped by pirates. In the 1st century BC, the Mediterranean had a problem with piracy. Following the fall of Carthage, the demise of the Seleucid Empire, and Ptolemaic Egypt on the wane, there was no strong naval power left in the Mediterranean. The rugged region of southern Anatolia, known as Cilicia Trachea, was notorious for its hordes of seafaring pirates who frequently attacked and pillaged Roman trade vessels. Typically, when a foreign power or group caused trouble for the Romans, they were duly and promptly dealt with. However, in this instance, the Romans had never sent a navy against the troublesome pirates. It is suggested that this is because the pirates offered the Roman senators slaves, which they needed for their vast plantations in Italy, meaning, whilst it would have benefited the Roman traders to have piracy dealt with, it wasn't necessarily beneficial for the self-interests of the senators, consequently making piracy commonplace. Now let's turn to the year 75 BC, where a young Julius Caesar enters the story. The 25-year-old was travelling to Rhodes, seeking the tutelage of rhetorician Apollonius Molon. With the Greek island of Rhodes being located just off the south coast of Anatolia, where many of the pirates dwelt, there certainly were risks involved travelling there, as Caesar would soon find out. We will be following Greek historian Plutarch's account of what happened to young Caesar. Though his biography Life of Caesar was written a century after the events described, Plutarch sourced his accounts from writings nearer to Caesar's life, giving at least some credibility to his biography. Nevertheless, it must be noted that some points in his works, and in this story in particular, were contested at the time as well as today. In other words, we must take certain elements of the tale with a grain of salt. According to Plutarch, upon capturing the young Roman, the pirates demanded a ransom of 20 talents. Caesar burst out laughing. They did not know, he said, who it was they had captured, and he volunteered to pay 50. It is hard to value ancient currencies against modern ones. Nevertheless, according to some estimates, 50 talents would be in the tens of millions in US dollars today. The pirates were reportedly stunned at their hostage negotiating a more expensive ransom for himself, but nevertheless allowed it. Next, Caesar sent his followers to various cities in order to raise the money, and was left with one friend and 2 servants amongst the pirates, who were, according to Plutarch, about the most bloodthirsty people in the world. Astonishingly, however, Caesar was unfazed by this and treated them so high-handedly that whenever he wanted to sleep, he would order the pirates to be quiet. For 38 days, with the greatest unconcern, he joined in all of their games and exercises, just as if he was their leader instead of their prisoner. He also wrote poems and speeches which he read aloud to them, and if they failed to admire his work, he would call them to their faces illiterate savages, and would often laughingly threaten to have them all hanged or crucified. They were much taken with this, and attributed his freedom of speech to a kind of simplicity in his character or boyish playfulness, not taking the threats seriously. The ransom letter eventually arrived from Miletus, and Caesar was again free. However, instead of continuing his journey to Rhodes for his studies, Caesar had other ideas. Once free, he immediately manned some ships and set sail from the harbour in pursuit of the pirates. He found them where they had kept him captive, and with his newly formed crew, Caesar led a surprise assault against his former captors, capturing them all. He took their property as spoils of war and put the men themselves into a prison at Pergamon. He then went in person to Marcus Junius, the governor of Asia, thinking it proper that he, as praetor in charge of the province, should see to the punishment of the prisoners. Junius, however, was being indecisive and kept saying that he needed time to look into the case. Despite Caesar's initial plan to observe the proper formalities of Roman law, he paid no further attention to him. He went to Pergamon, took the pirates out of prison, and crucified the lot of them, just as he had told them he would do when he was on the island and they imagined he was joking. Whilst there may be aspects of this story that were embellished by Plutarch, such as whether the pirates were crucified as Caesar threatened, or whether Caesar did demand a higher ransom for himself, what we do know for sure is that he was indeed captured by pirates, treated them like they were his subordinates, and eventually captured them when he was free. That alone gives an astonishing insight into one of history's greatest figures, where despite being a virtually unknown person in the Roman landscape, one can see the character, confidence and talent that would later make him one of the most powerful people in the world, and indeed in history. Thank you for joining us at Canned History. If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more, then like, comment and subscribe.